Hello. Hey guys, and we're on to the next part of my review for Knights of the Frozen Throne. And we're going to be discussing Rogue. Rogue has got a lot of different quirky things. Yeah, definitely some very interesting cards in the Rogue set. So let's dive straight into them. We'll start with Valera the Hollow. The Rogue Death Knight, 9 mana, Battlecry, gains stealth until your next turn and gives you 5 armor. So this is pretty crazy. You gain stealth. So your hero has stealth, so it can't be targeted by spells, can't be attacked by minions, can still be damaged by things like Hellfire, things where stealth doesn't matter and you don't need to target anything. And the hero power you get from this is Shadow Reflection, which is a passive hero power. And at the start of every turn, you get a Shadow Reflection in your hand. And what Shadow Reflection does is copies the first card. It copies the first card you play. So if you play a 0 mana Arcane Giant, it will give you a 0 mana Arcane. It will turn the Shadow Reflection into a 0 mana Arcane Giant, and then you can play another 0 mana Arcane Giant. But you have to use Shadow Reflection on something that's 5 or less mana because the Shadow Reflection disappears at the end of your turn. So it's passive, so you get a new one every turn. But if you don't use the current one, it disappears at the end of the turn. So you need to be, using it on something, playing something cheap, so you can actually play it twice and make the most out of the hero power. And it's pretty crazy. Like in some ways, it's kind of like an ice block in Rogue. Like it's kind of stalling a turn. And there's loads of different ways you can use this. It is very slow, obviously. At 9 mana, Rogue doesn't have that many defensive tools, and so getting to turn 9 in the first place can sometimes be difficult as Rogue. But it is essentially like stalling a turn. One of the best things to use this with is definitely going to be like Vanish. Like one of the best ways of using this, I feel like would be like playing this on turn 9, your opponent can't touch you, so they're probably going to flood the board. And then the turn after you, like, Arcane Giant, and then Vanish, which removes the whole board, and then you just slam your Arcane Giants back again. Arcane Giant you've obviously got a Shadow Reflection of, so you get, like, 2 of them. And that type of thing is absolutely insane for tempo. You could use this in Jade Rogue. It can give you more Jade cards and make your Jades even bigger. Do you need it in Jade Rogue? I'd say probably not. Something like a Burgle type Rogue, you could also use this in. Burgle Rogue is kind of generally fairly slow. This can buy you an extra turn. I just feel like this card is so good with Vanish though. Like so good with Vanish that I almost feel like this would be better in like some kind of, well, I was gonna say Mill Rogue, but like you can't really play Mill Rogue in Standard at the moment. But in Wild, like you would definitely play this in Mill Rogue. Quest Rogue is obviously not very popular right now, but you would play this in Quest Rogue. You would definitely play this in Quest Rogue. Stalling, and then you automatically play Vanish in the deck anyway, and then you get multiple copies of all your cheap stuff. So it can just give you extra value once everything's 5/5s. So Quest Rogue, yeah, might be where this could actually shine. Obviously, Quest Rogue is fairly slow right now. Like, it takes a lot longer to complete the quest than it used to. But yeah, Valera Hurley is really crazy. There's so many different ways you can use this. This is definitely one of the most interesting Death Knights. However, I don't think it's going to be one of the most popular. Like, you could even just use this in Miracle Rogue, to be fair. Like, I think using this in Miracle Rogue is completely fine. But it is very slow. Like, that's the fact that it's 9 mana. Like, Rogue doesn't really have any control archetypes right now. So it's not a control. Like, you're not going to be playing this in a control deck. It's more of a tempo-y deck. And you kind of use this to stall a turn. And then the turn after, you need to have a really big tempo swing. Yeah, I like this a lot, but I'm not sure how much it will actually see play. Okay, the Rogue Legendary, 4 mana 4/5, Lillian Voss. Battlecry, replace spells in your hand with random spells from your opponent's class. So this is insane with Ethereal Peddler. So you play this on turn 4. All your spells in your hand, your backstabs, your eviscerates, whatever, get turned into, say, Paladin cards. Say you're against Paladin. And then you play Peddler the turn after, and they all get reduced by 2 mana. Plus, this card has a decent stat line. Like, a 4 mana 4/5 is good. So 4 mana 4/5 with a good effect is really nice. Like, you're probably not going to be playing this in a deck where all your spells are extremely important, and like you have a certain synergy with them all. Like, say, Malygos Rogue. You're not going to play this in Malygos Rogue because you want all your burn to face, for example. But it could be you can use this also as well as in an Ethereal Peddler deck. You could also use this with like all the Razor Petals or coins, backstabs, that type of thing. All these really cheap spells you can suddenly turn into spells of higher value. So I think this card is really strong, actually. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be trying some kind of a Peddler Rogue. Because the synergy with this is really insane. And Peddler is already a strong card, even though it doesn't see much play in the meta. Like, the card is good. So yeah, this is great. Runeforge Haunter, 4 mana 5/3. During your turn, your weapon doesn't lose durability. So this is something we haven't really seen before. It's not a battle cry effect, so as long as this is on the board, you can keep... If this is on the board forever, you can just keep attacking with your weapon and it's never going to lose durability. Which is kind of cool. And it's on turn 4, so you can play it after your Shadowblade. New card we haven't discussed yet. 3 mana 3/2 weapon. Battlecry, your hero is immune this turn. This is a really good card. Rogue doesn't have any good healing or taunts or anything like that in its class. So being immune, being able to remove something and not take the damage is a really big deal. So Shadowblade is a really nice addition to Rogue. I think this is a really good card. And you can get an extra charge of it with the Runeforge Haunter. So you play your Shadowblade on 3. It is a battle cry, so you're only immune for the first turn you attack with this. And then you play your Runeforge Haunter, attack with Shadowblade again, and you don't even lose durability, which is really nice. So you're getting, essentially turning your 3/2 weapon into a 3/3 weapon, kind of. And maybe even more if the Runeforge Haunter doesn't die. You could maybe even play this in... Like, one problem with this card is that Rogue currently doesn't have many good weapons. This is a new weapon, and this is pretty good, but other than Shadowblade, you have, like, Perdition's Blade, which is okay. I do like Perdition's Blade, actually. But obviously getting an extra charge of a 2-attack weapon isn't as good as a 3-attack weapon. Who knows, maybe Deadly Poison could come back into the action. Like, Deadly Poison is definitely not a bad card. So yeah, this is a really quirky card. And it's one of those cards where it's not like insanely good, but it's very like borderline. Like this seems like a balanced card to me. That if a rogue deck with weapons becomes a thing, I think you would play this card. Like, you're very often daggering on turn 2 as rogue anyway, so you like dagger turn 2 and then like do some stuff with Deadly Poison, like turn 3 Deadly Poison a Vis, then play this on turn 4 and get an extra charge on your weapon, like that type of thing. Like, that's nice. That's nice. Okay, next card. Plague Scientist, 3 mana 2/3, combo, give a friendly minion poisonous. So obviously it's a combo, so you have to use some kind of coin or some other card before you actually are able to give a friendly minion poisonous. You need to actually have something on the board for this to be good. So the type of deck that this card is going to be good in is tempo-style rogue decks. So things like maybe Jade Rogue and Elemental Rogue, which I've been playing a lot of. This would be really good in Elemental Rogue, I think. So yeah, this is a good card, but it's only good in a specific rogue. Like, you're not going to play this in Miracle Rogue, because in Miracle Rogue you don't really have the board a lot of the time. And so this is just going to be sitting in your hand useless. But if you're playing... a deck with like lots of 1-drops, Fireflies, Swashbuckler Patches, maybe even Argent Squire. Like, playing Argent Squire on turn 1, then like coining this and giving it poisonous is nice. So maybe even a more aggressive type rogue deck this could fit into. Also Burgle Rogue, like the Peddler list I was talking about. You might play this and that as well. So yeah, this is a good card. Doomerang. Another good card. A 1 mana epic rogue spell. Throw your weapon at a minion. It deals its damage and then returns to your hand. So this is pretty crazy. So say you have your Shadow Blade. You use your Doomerang for 1 mana. Throw it at the minion. And it does the 3 damage. And then the Shadow Blade goes back in your hand again. So you can you have the Shadow Blade back in your hand to get the immune from it again. So you get to use the Battle Cry again, which is really nice. Other than the issue with same with the Runeforge Haunter. The issue with Runeforge Haunter and with Doomerang is that there aren't quite enough good rogue weapons. Like, I almost feel like you're going to want to play Deadly Fork, the 3 mana 3/2 that has a death rattle, add a 3/2 weapon to your hand, just for these kind of like weapon synergies. Because they are good cards, but you need the weapons to synergize with them. This also works, Doomerang also works with Envenom. So Envenom is the 3 mana spell that gives your weapon poisonous. If you throw your poisonous weapon, it will just kill the enemy minion. So maybe, I mean, you can also Envenom and get extra charges of Envenom with Runeforge Haunter. So the Doomerang, like, I think Runeforge Haunter and Doomerang would go together in a deck if they're gonna see play. Another benefit for Doomerang is that it is 1 mana. And so it's very good. Like 1 mana cards, especially spells, are especially good in Rogue for activating combos, using with Auctioneer, that type of thing. So, yeah, this card is really nice. Spectral Pillager. 6 mana 5/5. Combo, deal damage equal to the number of other cards you played this turn. So, I've been thinking about this card quite a bit, actually. Like, when I first saw this card, I was like, oh, wow, this card's insane. Because you can go face with the damage. Like, you can play a load of cards, then play this, and actually goes face with the damage you're using it with. But if you're playing a lot of cards, generally they're going to be cheap cards. They're going to be like preps and backstabs and coins and 1 mana things. You would much rather use all that kind of stuff with Auctioneer than with this card. You would much rather draw a bunch of cards rather than playing a load of cards just to get the damage out of this card. Like, if you play 3 cards and then play the Spectral Pillager, it's only doing 3 damage. It's not even as good as Fire Elemental, even if you've played 3 cards. So I think this card is not as good as it first looks. I mean, obviously there's things you can do with this. Like, if you Shadowcaster this and get it for 1 mana, and then you can do, like, loads of crazy stuff, and in that kind of situation, like, yeah, this could be cool. But on, like, turn 6 or 7, like, that time in the game, you would much rather be playing Auctioneer, I feel. Yeah. Like, I mean, maybe you even play, like, Burgly Bullies. You can play... If you're playing this card, you want to play as many cheap things as you can. So you probably literally play Burgly Bully to try and get more coins in your deck. You probably play Zarel for the 2 more 1 mana spells. Yeah, if this was going to be played in any Miracle type Rogue deck, I think it would only be a 1-of. I think you could afford to play 2 of this. Bone Baron. 5 mana 5/5. Death Rattle, add 2 1/1 skeletons to your hand. So this is a pretty average card. 5 mana 5/5 is kind of below average stat line. Has a Death Rattle though, so it comes back from N'Zoth. And the 1/1 skeletons are useful in Rogue. So any 1 mana card is, you know, always very good in Rogue. So the Death Rattle is quite nice. For Rogue. But it's a slow minion. Like, how slow can you actually afford to be? The thing with Rogue, like, you don't have... Like, you do have a new lifesteal card. Leeching Poison, the 2 mana spell, give your weapon lifesteal. So this is actually the first ever Rogue card that actually heals you. So this is one kind of control-y Rogue card. I don't think it's... I don't think it's that good though. I I mean, it can be good if you have a massive weapon, but I think it's going to be too hard to get a good weapon for this to be useful. And Bone Baron is kind of slow. Like, you're going to have to be playing some kind of N'Zoth rogue. Probably. Which is pretty slow. No, I mean, do you even need to be playing an N'Zoth rogue? Like, you could just play this in some kind of tempo rogue. I mean, if you compare it to the other 5 drops in rogue, like compare it to Val Spineslayer, it's nowhere near as good as Val Spineslayer, like, that's for sure. Shadowcaster. Shadowcaster is definitely better if you have a minion on board. This is better if you don't have a minion on board. And the other card is... What's the other 5? Oh, Ethereal Peddler. Ethereal Peddler is way better than this for tempo. So this just doesn't seem as good as the other 5 drops in Rogue, unless you're playing a very slow deck. But it's not a terrible card. Yeah, Leeching Poison already kind of spoke about that. Spoke about Shadowblade. It's a good weapon. Roll the Bones. A 2-mana spell. Draw a card. If it has Death Rattle, cast this again. So 2-mana draw a card is obviously not that good. But if you draw 2 cards with this, it's very good. Like, the difference between drawing 1 or 2 cards is pretty massive. And yeah, 2 cards is definitely nice. But you're going to have to be playing a lot of Death Rattle minions for this to be worth playing. Obviously, you've got like Hunt Undersea Huckster. Maybe you're playing Bone Baron. Maybe you're playing Deadly Fork. Like, maybe in some kind of Death Rattle rogue deck that has weapon synergies as well. So like you play Deadly Fork, you play Bone Baron, you play Huckster, you play Roll the Bones. Because you're playing Deadly Fork, you can also play weapon synergies. And maybe even this, because you're going to die pretty quick if you're hitting a lot of things with weapons. So that's an idea for a deck with some of these new cards. But yeah, this card is only good in a very specific deck. And even then, you're going to need to be playing a lot of Death Rattles for this to be worth it. Yeah. Okay. Is that everything? Yeah, okay. So Rogue has got some of the... I think Rogue has got some of the kind of harder to judge cards. Like things like Doomerang, things like Runeforge Haunter. Like they wouldn't be played in like the current meta, like that's for sure. Because there's no Rogue weapons. But like with the addition of Shadowblade, like makes a big difference. And the fact that Doomerang and Runeforge Haunter are good cards could maybe influence Deadly Poison or Perdition's Blade to maybe come into the light a bit. Yeah, and the Death Knight can be used in so many ways. So Rogue is gonna be one to watch, man. There's some crazy things could be happening with Rogue. Also, Lillian Voss has crazy high roller potential with Peddler. Like you play this in the Peddler, and it's just insane every time. Yeah, Rogue's cool, man. All right, see you in the next vid, guys.